Welcome to another episode of Boardroom Conversations, the WATPROP Business Podcast. Today we have an extremely special guest joining us from KZN. His name is Donavan Bailey. Donavan is the CEO of Sign International. Sign International is a company that specializes in events and promotional items at events, such as flying banners and A-frames in particular. They're the company that actually invented and patented the A-frame and the flying banner. Join us today as we unpack the Sign International story. I'm your host, Justin Watkins. Just a quick one, before this episode begins, I'd really encourage you to like, share, and subscribe. We are on YouTube and Spotify, Boardroom Conversations, the WATPROP Business Podcast. Please also go follow us on LinkedIn to keep up to date with the latest episodes. Thank you. Okay, Don, thank you so much for flying up from Durban for the Boardroom Conversation, the WATPROP Business Podcast today. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today. It's such a privilege to have you on the podcast today, really. Today we're obviously going to be unpacking your personal story with Sign International and Sign, all their innovation, all the products that they've done, and how you've also played a role in taking it globally. And that's basically going to form the basis of our discussions going forward. So just as a starting point, who is Donavan Bailey?
Donavan Bailey was born in Pietermaritzburg, the Sleepy Hollow, back in the 70s. That's where I grew up, a wonderful place to grow up. I was educated in Natal, right up to end of university. After that, at school, all I wanted to be was a pilot. And back in those days, you still had this military hump to get over. So my parents said, you're not going to the army. You need to get a piece of paper behind your name. So I remember thinking, right, what am I going to do to pass the time? Okay, best marks, maths. Maths gets associated with accounting. Go and do an accounting story. And I remember doing it and not enjoying it, but thank God I did it, because now I look in hindsight, thank goodness I did it. And just putting my head down and just getting it over with. And I remember finishing and walking up to my father and said, no, you see, I've done it. Now I want to go and learn to fly. And he said, exactly. Now you can get a job and pay for it yourself. Bye-bye. And that's what I did. From there, I started working in Durban. I actually initially was going to work for an audit firm. And the entrepreneurship thing started. I worked all the way through university. I got taught the hard lessons. My father had a business, funny enough, that he didn't like. It was on the side, building carports, construction stuff. And in those days, it was a nightmare when you're doing domestic work at people's homes, because it wasn't EFT and stuff, but people had to write a check. And often the installation team would go, if someone wasn't there, they wouldn't leave a check, or the favor, they wouldn't put the date on the check. And there's all these little bad debts to collect. And I used to get a percentage of what I could collect, but I only could work after 5, meeting people at their house and fixing. And I guess in business, the hardest thing is collecting money, having the guts to collect money. So got blooded well. And then, I started paying for, once I qualified, I took over that business. My father said he was going to shut it down because he hated it. But he said, if you're brave and you really want to learn, take it over and go and collect all the money that's due in it now, and you'll have the cash to run it. So first 2 months of that business, I just collected cash. Blooded noses, the whole lot, collecting money. And then I worked 7 days a week, really hard. It was a little factory plus doing domestic installations. Never been a business that depends on weather. That's what I learned from that one. Because when it rains, you can't install product. So Decembers used to be a lot of fun. And I was learning to fly, and the instructor teaching, a wonderful man, said after all, you're going to battle, because the weekends is when I could fly. The weather wasn't good. It was just taking too long. He said, why don't you go off and save the money and then hit it hard? So I packed up and went to London. In London, I actually met my current wife, same lady, and amazing experience. Went through the whole London experience, but I ended up working in a sports marketing firm, which also circled back later in life. And amazing experience, because I met amazing people that I'm still friends with today. We meet up every year. We worked in the rugby, cricket, golf, all sorts of things, but in events, which is where I am today. And after 2 years in London, I came back to South Africa. Went to Port Elizabeth to learn to become a commercial pilot. And I went there because I didn't know anyone, and I knew I just had to study. I went, put my head down, did it in 8 months. And once done, I went straight into a job flying for the United Nations in Angola, which was a massive learning curve. And by the end of 98, we got 2 aircraft shot down in 3 days. And I happened to be on leave in South Africa, and the phone call came through that we'd lost the guys, the crew and stuff, and it all sort of came home. And that was the moment where I realized maybe I want to fly when I want to, not when I have to. And it was time for a career change. And that's where my father had started this business, and I went to go and see his new business. I popped in, and I was getting interviewed for airlines, and I popped in and we're sitting talking to each other across the desk. And he had started this business, Expand Sign, purely by default, where he had been manufacturing tents. And they were fold-up tents, and you're in the retail game. And as you know, the retail game, buyers are only there to get as much margin as possible. And he had started marketing them into the USA and Australia for sun protection. And then people like Procter & Gamble wanted printing on the side as giveaways. And he started dealing with ad agencies. And someone said one day, "Can't you make a signboard like this?" The old man, being an engineer, went back to the factory, made one in the back, happened to be playing squash with someone from MTN in those days who was pushing hard in their marketing. And then the old man always said he never forgets the guy saying, "How much?" And the old man just shot a price out of his mouth. Like I said, "Perfect, I'll buy 10. The old man said, "Hell, I've got to make like 20 tents for that, to make one signboard." Because now you're dealing with marketing. They've got a budget, and obviously everyone's conscious of their costs, but they're not as conscious of reselling it again. And I went onto the comrades, and he had his number on, and the phone just started ringing. And he said overnight he pivoted the business without even knowing what he was doing. It just happened. Didn't understand printing and how to put it on textiles. And the business had started. And then when I sat in front of him, he said, he'd always been a serial entrepreneur and always in exports. "I want to export." And I said, "Well, how?" And he said, "Haven't thought about that." And then it just dawned with me. I've been in sports marketing. I had all these contacts in Europe. And I said, what if I go back and I start a company and I buy from you? He said, put his hand across and said, "Let's do it. Game on." And I packed up in 99, got married, headed off to London and said, how difficult can it be? And started Expand Sign Europe at that time in 99. Yeah.
So now it's 1999, you've started Expand Sign. Was it Expand Sign International or was it just Expand Sign?
No, the name came a bit later. We didn't really have a name. We were trying to work out what the name should be at that time. I think we called it was Snap and Add, because that's what it was board with Snap Open. And that's all we had. We had one product.
So that A-frame, was that invented by your father?
Yeah, he patented and invented it. And I had worked in that sports marketing game in events, golf days. And we used to rent a truck to transport these massive wooden boards that they'd put out on golf days. So I thought, got the solution. I remember being the accountant writing the checks, thinking it's ridiculous. Now I've got a product, you can put 50 of them in the back of a normal car and go and market it at events.
Because they're so foldable and so adaptable.
Yeah.
So now you're sitting 1998, you've gone to the UK now, you've got all these contacts in sports marketing. What's the way forward from there?
Well, how we get into the life of an entrepreneur and why I got gaps in my teeth and how they get punched out. So, arriving there, you got to learn how to sell. I thought I could sell. And I always say it, I don't know why these schools have this life orientation. And I know there's certain things kids have to learn. But learning how to sell is probably the most crucial thing for any entrepreneur. No one guides you. And it is an art. You're either born a little bit with it, but there's also the art side. But I was literally the traveling salesman knocking on doors. And it took me a long time to learn how to close a deal. Well, the saying is to ask for an order. And I think my biggest breakthrough was bumping into an old friend in a pub. And she was an au pair for a very wealthy man called Michael Jackson, not the singer. The guy started Sage Accounting. And he said he loves helping people get businesses going. Would you like to meet him? I thought, well, why not? And the next day, Michael Jackson phoned me and said, come for lunch at the St. James's Club. And in those days, women weren't even allowed through the front door in 99 at St. James's Club. And you had to wear a suit. Went up and sat in front of him and he poured a glass of wine and he said, give me your business card. And I had proudly put my title in. He said, never put a title on a business card. I said, why? He said, because if I think you're an idiot, I write off your whole business. You need to be what your customers want you to be. So if you're T-Boy today, that's what you're going to be, the T-Boy. That was my first lesson. He said, the only titles that count are title deeds. So I don't have any titles in our business today. We don't have on our business cards from that event. And then he said, what's your problem? And I explained, and he said, do you believe in what you sell? I said, yes. He said, then offer them their money back if they don't like it. I thought, I said, I can't do that because I make a custom product. And he said, no, you just told me you believe in what you do. He said, English by nature are too nervous to phone up and ask you. They will never ask you for your money back, I guarantee. I said, okay. And I spent the whole afternoon drinking wine with him, wobbled out of there. And he said to me, what deals do you have on the table? And at that time was the Rugby League World Cup coming up, and Tetley's Bitter, British, I was talking to them, and they were not committing. He said, phone him tomorrow and tell him, use it for the event. And in the event he doesn't like it, you'll take the product back, or he must pay you. And I phoned the guy and I said, hey, come on, man, we're going back and forth. I'll just make it, use it over the Rugby League World Cup, and at the end we can discuss. He said, really? I said, yes. I said, okay. And it was literally that. I thought, oh, okay, that happened. And I got in, and I got photographs at Rugby League. And then I just started phoning all those leads I had. Not everyone worked, but it generally started to work. And then when you crack deals, it's like your confidence comes. It comes in your tone of your voice. It comes in your body language. And that's how it starts going. And you start asking for the orders, basically. Yeah.
Wow, so there was a deal that you did with a pretty well-known brand, namely Adidas.
Yeah.
Walk us through that story as well.
So my mother's business partner played in Wimbledon in the 1960s. I think it was in 68 or something. And she had a reunion in the 1999. And in that reunion, she happened to meet a guy from Adidas. He was named Robin Money, and I always remember it because his name had money in it. And she said, well, you got to meet this guy, Donavan Bailey, etc. And she phoned me the next day and said, phone him. And it's quite daunting. Phoned Adidas, I introduced myself, and he said, yes, well, you can come and visit me. And as I was saying to you earlier, back in the old days, you could hear his diary pages flicking, and he gave me a date 6 weeks away. I thought, okay, fine, I'll pitch up. And that date came. I drove up with my brother at a meeting in Manchester as well, which is really like a Durban, Johannesburg trip. We had a punch on the way there. One of stupid cars out of spare wheel. I arrived 3 hours late, having warned him. I was selling in a suit, because that's what you do in England, dripping in sweat. I did the whole pitch, and he said, great, wasn't a good atmosphere. I walked out and I said to brother, that was a disaster. We turned around, drove 6 hours back to London, and the next day he phoned me and said, come back and pitch to grassroots development and soccer. And I went up and down another 4 times, and then when he phoned me and said, right, can you do a deal? And it was in the hundreds of thousands of pounds. And I remember without even flinching, said, oh, no problem. And just thinking to myself, hell, how am I going to do this? I've got to finance it, pay customs, get it here. I said, of course we can. And yeah, it was deal on. And I had to get it into the country. I think I said it to you earlier, the 3 Fs, friends, families, and fools, had to call on to borrow money to pay for the duties and VAT to get it into the country. And then his first event, he said, would you like to come? And jokingly said, well, let me check with my team, which was me. I said, oh, what the hell, I'll pitch up. And it was I never get it, in Newcastle, in winter. I left London at 4 a.m. with my car loaded. I arrived at the venue with a map on the steering wheel. Most people wouldn't understand that. Young guys today know Google Maps. And I set it up, and they arrived, and he was blown away. And I had amazing pictures of David Beckham, Kevin Keegan, who was the coach, in front of my product. It ended up in the front of the GQ magazine. And that literally became my brochure thereafter. I'd arrive at a meeting and said, your brand could look like this, and I'd slide the GQ magazine across, and that's how it grew from there. That was also a massive confidence booster. I remember you being in property, going to my landlord, because it was month to month, and paying out the rest of the lease. And he said, I don't understand. I said, just take the money and let's just move on. And that also, gives you massive confidence. Your bills are paid, your debt's paid, off you go.
For sure. Wow. So obviously Expander Sign has expanded tremendously. Yeah. So you obviously started the UK thing, and then it must have gone into Europe from there naturally.
Yeah, so I got German agents, I got Irish agents, Spanish agents, and it started by 2001. I was getting chaos. I was basically order taking, sitting, managing it all, getting it into countries and dispatched. And it really accelerated, doing trade show after trade show. I think you can only do that when you're in your 20s, because when I look back, it was chaos. And I still remember our first German trade show. Met this new German agent. They had contacted me. You don't really know each other. You South African, German. And we had a trade show in Munich, and we had to drive from Frankfurt to Munich. And it was winter, and they picked me up, and we drove down, and there was a crash on the Autobahn, and it was a snowstorm, and they shut the freeway down. We sat, the 3 of us, in the car a whole night. So if you want to get to know your agents, get stuck in a car for a whole night in winter. And we arrived at the trade show at 5 a.m, set the stand up for 4 days of standing 12 hours a day. Yeah, those were the infancy of how you get the business off the ground.
And then what year did you go into the US?
The US we started in 2000. It was 2000 was the beginning.
Okay, so around that time you did England, and then obviously went across to Europe, and at the same time you went across to America as well.
Yeah. So that was, again, an agent, American, happened to be in South Africa, saw the product, had been in events, thought, hang on, that's a great solution for events. And that's how it started. And remember, in those days, you had a totally novel product. And it's quite easy to sell a product when nobody else has it. to be honest. That was great. That's the art is always to find the next product that nobody else has got and everybody wants. Yeah.
So one of the biggest things about Expander Sign in particular is that it's born and bred in South Africa, and a huge component of that is manufacturing. They have a lot of products. Obviously, Expander Sign has a tremendous amount of products. Maybe let's just unpack some of the products that have been developed from its fruition.
Yeah.
And then the local manufacturing in South Africa. And why do you choose to manufacture in South Africa?
Okay, so the A-frame I mentioned was the first product. And then in 2000, an old colleague of my father's used to do his marketing. It was photography from the furniture days. His brother owned a fishing rod company, and he took a fishing rod and he bent it and he put a piece of fabric and he made the teardrop banner. But unfortunately, he had a nervous breakdown. He literally drove to the side of the road. I could sort of appreciate that feeling some days, and crawled down the bank and just lay down, and that was it. And his family came to us with this product and they said, "Can you help?" And I always love the story because it's a business. You can do spreadsheets and try and make decisions, but you still got to make an impulse decision. And they put this flying banner up in front of us, and my father and I looked at it and said, "That's a bit odd. How are you ever going to put a logo on it? It's a weird shape." But my dad, being who he is, looked at it and said, "They're good people. We've got to help them. Let's take it on." We said, "Okay, we will sell this product and we'll pay you X of each one." And little did we know, the thing just started selling. It cannot explain it. It still to date cannot explain it. And within a couple of months, they came and decided to put Gareth he wanted to buy a plot and do paintings. And they said, "We need X." And we paid one big check, and they went off into the sunset, and we took that product on, and it just kept selling. And I still think, later on, I remember my son playing on his PlayStation and racing game. You got cars around here. And there around the racetrack on Xbox are flying banners. And that all started in Pietermaritzburg. The guy lived in Pietermaritzburg in Durban. That product went, yeah.
So all the products are obviously patented by you guys. You guys have protected patents over that.
Look, patents, we fought them, we've won. But to be honest, the best thing you do is marketing and sales. It's a thing I had to learn. Patents make lawyers rich. You do need them. If I had a fancy pharmaceutical formula, I definitely would patent it. But you've got to throw a lot of money to look after patents. And at the end of the day, your sales and marketing machine is what really brings it in. But I won't lie, it's quite, as I mentioned earlier, nice to have a product that nobody else has and everybody wants. But at the end of the day now, we make printed textiles and we put it on a stick. Yeah. That's what we do, yeah.
For sure.
And then Durban, Cape Townians don't like us saying this, but Durban is the center of the world. If you're in the export game, you look at the world. You go up, we go to Europe, we go this way, we go to Australia, and that way we go to the States. And we're in the right time zone. And Durban has naturally always been a big textile hub. So we have the workforce that's there. And it is an incredible workforce that is available to us in Durban. And we've got the logistics to get everything out from there. So it works. It's just in the right place. And the weather's a lot warmer than Joburg.
Yeah, that's one of the benefits of being located in Durban. Yeah. And one of the spin-offs is over time, as you improve your manufacturing processes, one of the ways is that you can leverage your manufacturing to actually give back. Yeah. And one of the processes that you guys do actually involved in is actually the Uzwelo program, where you make school bags. Yeah. Let's just talk about the Uzwelo program for a little while.
As South Africans, we can complain, about how we live and that, but we actually live a good life. But our biggest issue in this country is there's not enough hands working. It seems like everyone wants a degree and to be a professional, but people forget there's a lot in working. And I heard an amazing stat that in the 1980s, 40% of our country's GDP was in manufacturing. Same as USA. Today, it's less than 9%. Retail, I think, has a bigger, I can be corrected on that. So remember, retail is buying things that are imported into this country. Yet we have so many people looking for jobs. So I had a sit down with a politician. It was a bunch of us had an opportunity, and we thought we were going to eat this guy alive. And he is a politician for a reason, because he ate us alive. Yeah. And he said, "What are you doing? You're all sitting here complaining, but what are you going to do? Have you ever gone to underprivileged school and just spoken to those children and given them hope and things like that? What are you doing?" And he said, "If you've got a business, can you employ more people?" And that's what I said. All right, I'm going to do something. And one of my issues, I do environmental work for conservation, and I actually looked at it as a business and said, we're not doing enough, we're not responsible enough. And unfortunately, a downside of the textile industry is waste. So how could we do something with our waste? And we used to have 5 large tips a month. And the idea initially came of making shopper bags from waste in rural areas. The rural area part didn't work because of power, maintenance, logistics, and all those things that came into it. So I thought, okay, well, I'll start a business. And the idea was looking for people with the right attitude, knowledge, and ability. And sewing is an amazing skill. It's dying breed, but top machinists get paid really, really well. And it's something that happened in the Second World War. They actually, in England, had a big push to teach people how to sew. So brought it in-house, and it started by making bags. And we basically got ladies with no skill, and I say ladies because it was predominantly ladies, and we taught them up. We've actually, few have moved on to better jobs, which was also part of the goal. That we celebrate every time someone leaves for a bigger and better job. Wow. And then from the school bag, the idea came working in these rural areas, watching these children walking to school for miles. And there's quite a bit about, when we go to formal schools, about uniforms, looking the part, makes a bit of pride. You know, if you're proud about where you are at school, arriving to school neat. But imagine arriving to school where you don't have shoes, you've walked 10 kilometers, and on top of that, your school book's on a plastic packet. That often if it rains and their books are damaged, they don't get replaced. And the idea came where we were to make a school bag that kids could take to school. And the idea being, a lot of our machinery has a lead on, lead off. We use a piece of fabric to start it. We now make that into a raincoat. So the bag incorporates a raincoat, a puncher that goes over and over their bag. And every bag's unique because it's made from the scrap pieces from our printing and waste. No two bags ever look the same. And the idea is as well for corporates that do social enterprise, you're often giving your money, but does it really get to the child at the end? And the idea is this: you buy the bag, see the bag, and you go and give it to a child. So we try to encourage corporates to buy and say, you choose your school, but then physically go and hand it out, because it's incredibly humbling to meet little kids that are go-lucky, smiling, that have nothing, and then talk to them about litter. And that's my pet hate. The poor kids always get a lecture from me about litter, stop throwing the stuff in. But Sunny, hopefully there's a sense, a little bit of pride. Now they've got a school bag to feel a little bit more special. And we're actually working with another organization through USAID, where now we're doing reflectives on the bag, because these kids on rural, in misty weather and very danger of getting run over, and with a little solar lamp. So during the day, that lamp's charging, and early morning it's flicking so people can see it when they walk on their own, and then at night they've got light to use on their books. So that business has grown. We've got involved with a company that recycles bottles, so we use felt and fabrics made, shopper bags. We're working with Nando's UK making stuff, a lot of banks making their laptop bags, etc. And we're weaving now textiles made 100% out of Pro-Pet bottles.
So if someone had to get involved with this kind of initiative, will they approach you guys directly, or is there a website that they...
Yeah, we've got Uzwelo.co.za. Uzwelo, it means compassion in Zulu. And that's the idea. We also have deaf staff in that business as well, which is incredible to see. You can only imagine it's hard enough getting a job. Imagine being deaf and how terrifying it is having to catch a taxi and everything when you're deaf. And they are incredible people. We've all had to learn a bit of sign language. There's amazing apps for people out there looking to employ deaf people that you can type in the app and it does the sign language for them. And everyone slowly got. But the reality is, deaf people just put their head down and work all day. Incredible.
That's absolutely incredible. What a beautiful story. And another passion of yours is flying planes.
Yeah.
And there's obviously a social responsibility element that you've got involved in personally, with obviously your passion for flying airplanes.
Yeah.
Just let's unpack that a little bit as well.
I think I said that saying earlier, how to make a small fortune, make a big one, and then get into aviation and you have a small thing. And that's what Richard Branson actually said that. So yeah, part of Uzwelo was I volunteer for an organization. When I came back in 2001, I didn't want to lose my flying. So I was flying around, and it becomes a bit purposeless to go and fly for 1,000 Rand hamburger, as I say, to go down the road. I wanted to fly with a purpose, and I wasn't going to fly commercially. And this organization, the Battaliers, that was started 26 years ago by a lady called Nora Kerr and Dr. Ian Player. And they realized there was huge value in taking people up in aircraft and having a view from above, looking down on what decimation's been done, and predominantly with mining. And Nora took the idea and thought, I'm going to start something. There are lots of people with aircraft. How can we use these in conservation? And the idea was born. I joined in 2005, and I've now been a board member with them as well now for the last 7 years. Part of Uzwelo is we give back to the Battaliers. I mean, it's purely a charity. The biggest give up being from the pilots, because it's their time and their aircraft. And now it's got far more diverse. We, from genetic diversity, flying lions, crisscrossing the country, swapping males and females around, obviously helping with the rhino anti-poaching. We've got a mission coming up looking for a very rare dung beetle in the Cape that's only found in the Cape above a certain altitude. And when certain little bugs become endangered, the poachers, because they have huge value, go and poach them for the Asian market. I never knew that. And now I thought, why are we going to go look for a little dung beetle in the Eastern Cape? So the Endangered Wildlife Trust is training dogs to sniff them out, to find colonies of them and look after them. We've looked for the woody-eye cactus, which is in a rare, there's 2 females in the Botanic Gardens. I know there's a male in the Ngoma forest in Zululand, and it blossoms a bright orange at a certain period. And we flew up and down to see if we could find it, to then go and they could go and extract and hopefully populate the other ones. And next week, as I mentioned earlier, big breakthrough with rhino taking eggs and basically in a laboratory being able to fertilize these eggs, which is huge for genetics and basically saving the rhino, and predominantly the northern white rhino. And we're very involved in the logistics of that. So tomorrow we fly in ocean research, going to go and look at the protected marine areas and if they've been damaged. That's stuff that the government hasn't done for 10 years now because of funding that's disappeared. So yeah, that's my big give back. I won't lie, being on a board of a charity is as hard as running a business. It is brutal. But it's amazing me with people that are all there because of the absolute passion.
Yeah, and it gives you a real sense of purpose in what you're doing, and it makes, even with Expand a Sign, it gives that purpose as well, because you realize that you're part of something far greater than yourself.
Yeah, and our chairman's Avroy Schlein, the makeup empire king, who's, Avroy, I hope I get this right, is 83 or 84 now, but still goes to work every day. So to meet a man and is as sharp as anything and as stern as anything is incredible and very inspiring. So it's great to work for those bunch of people like that too.
And to look at examples like that as someone to emulate and someone.
Although I hope I retire earlier than that, but yeah.
So one of the greatest things is when we're talking now about examples that you look to, and I mean, if you had to give advice to a young person in South Africa looking to start a business, what would that advice be?
You just got to do it. It's so daunting. And I think of the decisions I made, like arriving in London, getting married, arriving and saying to my wife, look what the local reps are selling. I'll do double that. How difficult can it be? And then suddenly 6 months in realizing I've actually sold nothing. I don't know what I'm doing. And all that trauma up and down is hard. But you have to take that leap of faith. And I always say, to be an entrepreneur, you actually have to be a pilot. Because starting a business is like standing on the edge of a cliff. And when you're kicked off, you have to design, engineer, and build an aircraft and learn how to fly it. So you have to be
all at the same time.
All at the same time to get out of that valley and soar. And you will have ups and downs, but no more if you go the corporate route. You're going to have ups and downs and days you're not going to enjoy it. But it's far more rewarding because the bad days are overcome very quickly by the good days. They're overpowered by a long way. And you will learn on the job. I mean, I think over the years of experience that even, pushing back on suppliers and not having that confidence, it just comes with time. But there's going to be the lean years. You can't not get away with it when you start a business. But it's all good, and just keep looking around you. And I mean, to me, the biggest part of the people that have come with me along on the journey and that have built. I've got staff who've been with me for 25 years. And I'll go to war with them, and that's like the big. And then I've got people that when I came back in 2001 were what they call cleaning hands, cutting off threads, that have studied and that are managers now in our business. And that's massively rewarding. That one day when I go off to green pasture, I look back and say, hey, I helped a whole lot of people, and their children now have been educated because of working where we were at Expand a Sign.
Wow, that's absolutely incredible. And that obviously leads into our final question, which there's certain books, there's certain people that you've looked towards to motivate you along this road and along this journey. If you had to just finish off with one or two favorite business quotes or stories that you keep very dear to yourself, what would those be?
The classic one is hard, easy, easy, hard. So an entrepreneur, it's hard if you want to make it easy. If you think it's all easy, it's going to be very hard. I actually don't know who said that quote, but I do live by it when I think I'm slacking off. Hang on, it's never meant to be easy. It's got to be hard to be easy. I think other great business quotes, books. I mean, I actually enjoyed Richard Branson's books just because there he was an outcast, a kid that didn't function at school, and it just proves, you just find the one thing you're good at, and then find a whole lot of other people that are better than you in the rest of it, and then make them shine, and then look back and smile. That's biggest lesson I've had to learn. Very hard soon, after a while to hand off power or knowledge off to people when you think, I've got to control. But there's nothing more satisfying when you do hand it off and it works really well and you see people grow and you can sit back. And the other one is I love history in relation, everything back to war, because in business is war. And that in the First World War, most lieutenants when running out of the trench were killed with a bullet in the back because they bought their rank. They didn't earn that rank. They got that rank. And there they would be. You imagine now you got to say to your soldiers, when I blow this whistle, we're going to go over the top and run at the Germans. And as you do that, you a soldier who's hating it, you've got foot rot thinking, stuff you, why should I follow you? And the first thing, oof, in the back. So be that leader that when you blow the whistle, the guys will follow over that. And you have to be unflinching and show no fear. And that is it. When times are really tough, in COVID, we shut down. Our industry shut down around the world. We thought we were geographically positioned that if one country was doing not too badly, there was an event in the world. And we had a look. And I remember looking at my other directors and saying, we've got staff that do live week to week. It is what it is. They're going home and their wages get it and they feed their family and they just survive another week. We stop paying them today, they buggered. And these are people that have been here 15 years. At 5 o'clock, I say I need help. They stay. We got to feed them. And we laughed and thought, Cyril made a speech. It's going to last 2 weeks. And then it was 2 months. And then it was 2 years in the end. Then we carried on and we paid them and they, to keep them alive. And I like to think that builds a bit of loyalty. And consciously, I was a lot happier with that decision. A lot poorer for it, yeah. But a lot richer in my soul for
100%,
it.
100%. Sure. Well, Donavan, I really, really appreciate your time, and I really appreciate just chatting about Expand and Sign. And what you guys have done is truly, truly incredible, and it's truly remarkable what you've built and all the products that you guys have designed and what you continue to do. A soft spot in my own heart is for example, the Uzwelo project. Yeah, I think that's an incredible project.
I've got to give my wife credit because I did drag her in and said, I've got this idea, but to be fair to my other shareholders and that, it's my idea. You got to come in and work for free for 6 months to start it. And she puts a lot of heart and soul into it. And she's been amazing in training the ladies up and building this team as well that she's done. And a lot of the design work, I'm an accountant, I do spreadsheets. She does very creative in design, and the bags that she does are amazing.
Absolutely incredible. And I really appreciate you sharing all these different insights and nuggets of wisdom with me today. And I really, really appreciate you coming out from Durban today. Thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Just one came earlier, and I talked about punching, and a very good quote. When you're an entrepreneur, you got to be like a boxer. You got to be prepared to spit teeth out, but just don't run out of teeth. And if you do, make sure you've got a very good dentist.
Well, thank you so much for coming onto the show, Donovan. Appreciate that. Thank you for your time.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.